Welcome to the Explainer. You know, when you're first learning the English language, it can honestly feel like this massive, sprawling landscape. It's a lot, right? But today, our goal is super simple and highly focused. We are going to help you talk about yourself. We'll be covering exactly how to give your personal information, master the basics of time and dates using numbers from 0 to 100, and introduce yourself with absolute confidence. Oh, and to help you along the way, definitely keep an eye out for the Davari translations of key vocabulary words featured throughout our slides today.
Okay, let's dive into this. If you have ever felt completely lost or, frankly, overwhelmed just trying to introduce yourself and share basic personal facts in a new language, you are absolutely not alone. It is literally one of the hardest first steps to take. But mastering these basics isn't about memorizing a dictionary. It's about understanding the underlying logic. Because once you see the patterns for sharing who you are and what you do, I promise it all starts to click. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The 16 English tenses. 2. Mastering the present simple. 3. Forming the present simple. 4. Spelling rules and changes. 5. Action versus stative verbs. And 6. Common mistakes to avoid. Section 1. The 16 English tenses. 16. In the English language, there are actually 16 tenses in total. That covers the past, the present, and the future. You'll notice we've included some helpful Dari translations for those key time concepts right here. Now, seeing that big number, 16, can definitely seem like a lot for a beginner. It's a bit intimidating. But the really great news is that you absolutely do not need all 16 to introduce yourself, share your personal information, or even just have a basic conversation today. Moving right along to Section 2, Mastering the Present Simple. We are going to focus entirely on the absolute bedrock of English communication. This 1/10 makes up roughly 50% of all written and spoken communication for native English speakers. Half of it. And crucially, this 50% includes exactly how we introduce ourselves, how we state our age using numbers, and how we share basic facts about our daily lives. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly when we use this powerhouse tense. Notice the Dari translations for the key vocabulary words here too. So we use it for facts, like I am 25 years old, using our numbers from 0 to 100. We use it for daily habits, like I wake up on Mondays, utilizing our days of the week. We use it for permanent situations, like he works at a bank. It's used for scheduled events, like the course starts in August, applying our months of the year. And finally, we use it to describe what happens in stories, like the hero dies at the end. To really understand the logic here, let's contrast it with a temporary state. When you're sharing your personal profile and you say, I live in Tokyo, using the present simple, you are implying that this is a permanent fact about your life. That is your home base. But if you say, I am living in Tokyo, you immediately signal that this is temporary. Maybe you're just there for a short visit or a study abroad program. The tense you choose completely changes the meaning of your personal information. Section 3. Forming the present simple. Building these sentences requires knowing the difference between action verbs and the incredibly important verb to be. For action verbs with subjects I, you, we, and they, you just use the base form, like I work. For he, she, and it, you add an S, making it he works. But wait, when you're giving personal information like your exact age, your feelings, or your location, you absolutely must use the verb to be. And this verb behaves a bit differently. For I, you use am. For you, we, they, you use are. And for he, she, it, you use is. So it becomes I am 25, or she is happy. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we frequently pair the present simple with adverbs of frequency, words like always, usually, or never, as well as specific days of the week. Because this tense is so deeply tied to our habits, these time markers are essential. If you say, I always play tennis on Tuesdays, you are firmly in present simple territory. Be sure to note the Dari translations provided for the days of the week here to really help reinforce that core vocabulary. Section 4. Spelling rules and changes. When using action verbs for he, she, and it, there are 3 simple steps to ensure perfect spelling every single time. Step 1 is your default. For the vast majority of verbs, you just add an S. Cook becomes cooks. Sleep becomes sleeps. Easy enough. Step 2, if the verb ends in S, SH, CH, X, or O, you add ES. Wash becomes washes. Go becomes goes. And step 3, if a verb ends in a consonant plus a Y, drop the Y and add IES, so study becomes studies. Just take your time with these rules. Practice makes them totally automatic. Section 5. action versus stative verbs.
So, the crucial point here is that stative verbs describe states of being, not physical actions. Think back to the most common and important stative verb we just discussed, the verb to be. Because these represent states, we almost never use them with ing. Even if something is true right in this exact moment, you still use the present simple. That is exactly why you say, I am happy, stating your condition, instead of I am being happy. We can basically break stative verbs down into 4 main categories: thoughts, feelings, senses, and possession. Now, because these can be slightly more complex ideas for a beginner, please check the Dari translations provided for these categories to really aid your understanding. When you are expressing your feelings or things you own as part of your personal profile, you will want to lock these verbs safely into the present simple tense. Context is literally everything, and some verbs can actually be both a state and an action. Take the verb think, for instance. Saying, I think it's a good idea, expresses an opinion, which is a mental state. That uses the present simple. However, saying, I am thinking about it, describes the active process of your brain working right in that moment. That is an action. It takes a little time to master these nuances, so don't worry, just keep practicing.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 6, Common Mistakes to Avoid.
Here is a quick summary of the biggest pitfalls for beginners. Number 1 is mixing up permanent situations with temporary ones. Another major one, and I see this all the time, is using the wrong verb for age. Many learners say, I have 20 years, but in English, you absolutely must use the verb to be and say, I am 20. Spelling errors are also super common, like writing trys instead of tries. And finally, forgetting to use our helping verbs do and does when asking questions with action verbs. Highlighting that last pitfall with action verbs, when asking a question using who, what, where, when, or why, learners often drop the helping verb completely. Saying what time you finish work might be understood by the listener, sure, but grammatically it is missing a crucial piece. You absolutely must include the helping verb for an action. So the correct structure is, what time do you finish work? Now, here's a fun little fact. The present simple can also smoothly handle the future if you are talking about numbers, dates, and schedules. For a timetable or a fixed plan, you simply combine the present simple with your date and time vocabulary. For example, the train leaves at 8 p.m. on October 15th. By clearly stating the number for the time and the specific month and day, the present simple does the job perfectly for a future scheduled event. Well, you now have the foundational tools to confidently give your personal information and talk about dates and times like a pro. So, think about this. What is one stative verb that perfectly describes your state right now? Keep that in the back of your mind as you tackle tonight's homework, which is to complete the personal profile worksheet. I want you to use the numbers, the dates, and the verb to be that we covered today to introduce yourself clearly in writing. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep practicing.